Are you a prepper or are you just prepared? Over the last several years, more and more people have become interested in prepping, and a lot of that was brought on by the pandemic. People realized that they needed to be better prepared for illness, for job loss, for money problems, and people started stocking up. And that created shortages in the grocery store and in the supply chain. I would have to say that a lot of things have always led me to be prepared. One of them is living in the country and not living close to where I can purchase things easily without a long drive and some added expense to running out of something. The second one is raising 6 children and having 3 of them be boys, where they ate a lot of food, and wanting to make sure at any given time that I had a surplus and I had enough to take care of my family. And the third one would be the fact that because I raised a large family, I became a avid clearance shopper. So if I could stock up on something that was on sale, I absolutely did it. The difference between being prepared and being a prepper is pretty clear cut. Being prepared has more to do with weather, power outages, or short term emergencies that you're trying to take care of. Being a prepper looks at long term survival, like if the grid goes down or there are major disasters that would affect the supply chain. But being prepared also can be a short ride to being a prepper. So today we're going to talk about some of the things that I have overstocked and some of the things that I'm looking at in 2026 that I am not going to be purchasing. I truly believe that having a good inventory is imperative so that we don't overbuy and overstock things that we already have, so that we're not out spending money that would be better spent on other things. So I always was prepared because of the reasons that I told you. And then when I decided to retire early, I started stocking up again because I knew I was going to be living on a low income. And I started thinking if I can buy it now, it will prolong how long of a break I take. And maybe it will keep me from having to go back to work at all. So I started looking at lots of household supplies like soap, shampoo, toothpaste, all of those things that I knew I would have to buy at some point. And if I could get them at a really good deal, I started stocking up. I also started stocking up on food and I started stocking up on my prescription medicine. I knew my insurance was going to run out when I quit my job, so I planned my quit date based on when I could get my last 90-day fills, and I started filling those up and stocking up on my medications. And then, as several of you know, I wintered in Texas those first 2 years after retirement. So I stocked up on medications to make sure that I wouldn't need any while I was down in the Texas area because my pharmacies were up here and I didn't want to transfer prescriptions. So now in 2026, I have extra soap, shampoo, toothpaste. I have extra prescription medicines. I have extra makeup. I have extras of so many things that I would normally buy to just keep my household and my life running smoothly. And I'm going to use those up before I buy more. I am not going to keep like a 90-day supply of my medications anymore. Unless I plan to travel, I don't need that many medications and I want to keep them rotated. And actually, that has worked out pretty well because, as you know, I was using the Kroger Savings Plan to buy my medications for pennies on the dollar, and they ended that program at the end of 2025. But because I had stocked up on my medications, I didn't have to worry about that right away. In fact, there's only been 2 medications that I've had to fill so far, and I'm still pretty well stocked up for a while on the rest of them. And by doing that, I switched those over to Walmart, and Walmart charged me $20 for 2 90-day prescriptions. So I was able to save quite a bit, and I'm using what I already have. So I don't have to put out the money for more. I also have been an Avon representative since I was 17. I used to do craft shows and Christmas markets, and I had a backstock of makeup and supplies that I wasn't using because they were for sale in my booths. I am now going through that and using my concealer and a lot of those things that I had saved to sell. And that keeps me from having to buy more when I run out of something. So sometimes we buy things ahead of time and we stock them back, and then they are not in peak condition. And that happened to some bulk envelopes that I had purchased. I had stored them in our back bedroom. We don't heat or cool that room unless we have someone staying there. And all of them drew a little bit of moisture and stuck shut. I was still able to pop them open, but I wasn't able to seal them again. So I've been using those up and using tape to seal those envelopes. So sometimes things are not at peak condition, but we are still able to use them. But sometimes they are not at peak condition and we're not able to use them. And that is one of the things that we face that is a downfall to buying too much and storing too much at any one time. So, back to knowing our inventory and being able to use things that we have. My husband, many years ago, was an insurance agent, and he had a ream of that letterhead that he had used because he primarily worked out of his home. I found that ream and I used it and flipped it over and used it in my printer to print out things that I needed just for me. And that saved me from buying a ream of typing paper. So, using up things that we have and not just throwing them out and finding other uses for them actually can be a money saver. But we don't know that until we go into all of those hidden areas and start digging and seeing what we actually have. Many times we have forgotten what we have. And when I retired, I started a year or so ahead of time going through what I had to see what I needed to stock up on. And I continue, even this far into retirement, to be surprised at some of the things that I find that I can use that will save us money. One of the policies that I've set for myself is I don't look at what the store tells me is a sale. I go by my own price points that I have set for myself, and many of those are set based on older prices that are really hard to find. I'm not willing to pay more than $2.79 a pound for chicken breasts that are boneless. And sometimes it's hard to find them around here for that price or less. But unless I do, I don't buy them. So I stock up based on what I say the price should be, not based on what it tells me at the bottom of the receipt that I saved. A lot of times those can be a smokescreen and they can try to make us think we're saving a lot of money when actually the buy one get ones sometimes are not a good deal. Sometimes they cost us more for that first item to make up for that second item, and they're not really a good sale. So setting those prices that fit my budget and fit my stock up price, it prevents me from buying something that I know costs too much and then it just makes me angry when I use it. If I paid $6.99 for a pound of hamburger, I would be angry when I pulled that out to use it. I would be thinking, wow, Bonita, you paid too much for this. And now how are you going to use it to make it actually worth $6.99 per pound? So, to keep myself from having that buyer's remorse, even on food, I set price points in my head that I'm willing to pay. So, when I pull that out of the freezer, I am okay with making whatever I want with that and no buyer's remorse. When I look to stock up on something, I make sure it's something that I already have figured out that I probably need to watch for because I'm running low. I don't buy things that we don't use regularly because with there only being two of us, we just don't go through them fast enough if it's not something that we use all the time. I don't fall for markdowns unless I already have a plan for them, I already need them, because the hassle of storing them and keeping them and rotating them for me is just too much. So I set perimeters for myself on how much I have and how much I will pay for things to help myself not overstock. To me, there is a cost that goes with overstocking or prepping too much. Of course, there can be waste, there can be not knowing what we have, and then there can be that hassle factor of rotating and using it and keeping it used up. And so, if you have a small household like I do, it's important to not overstock. And it's really easy to do when you come with the history that I have from having a lot of children or living in the country and always being used to having one, two, three, or four extra of something because you live so far away from town. So we have to know what our tendencies are to overstock so that we can control those tendencies. And I right now have made a list of a lot of things that I am not going to buy until I am way, way low on these things. I don't even care if there is a good deal on them. I already have plenty. And this year is about me trying to rebuild some extra cushion in my funds. I am paying for a daughter's wedding this year. I also want to take a small road trip. And I just had some major house renovations done at the end of last year. And I don't regret or anticipate regretting any of those expenditures. And those are all things that I want to do with my money, but I also want to be able to make sure that I have extra so when I need it, it is there. So every time I walk into the rooms where I had the floors remade, I don't regret that at all. I am so glad I had that done. I got a really good price. I got some really good workers to do it for me. And that's how I like to spend my money. I like to spend it so when I do spend it, I am really happy that I did, and I don't feel bad about putting out the money for something. But by doing that, it's also important to save where I can. So, all these extras that I've already been accumulating for the past 2 to 3 years, this year I am going through those. So if you're new to this channel, I'm Bonita and I live in rural Kansas. This is my third year starting out of retirement. I live frugally, I travel frugally, and I spend freely for things that I have saved for. And that gives me the best life possible. Let me know, are you more of a prepper or are you more prepared? Sometimes there is a fine line between one of those moving right into the other. And that's what I'm trying to prevent this year. I'm trying to prevent being a prepper and trying to use up the things that I have prepared for because I want to get my money's worth out of those great clearance buys that I have already stocked up before I stock up more. I hope this video has given you some things to think about, maybe in your own stockpile that you have in your house. I appreciate you listening today. If you've enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up, and I hope you'll join me for another one.